if you use nobody's going to know that you got it wrong unless they're a rabbi or they've, been doing Hebrew many, many years. Okay, the next one is 3 dots in a triangle, and that's known as a segol, and it's Okay? The next one is 2 dots, okay, right under the right, followed by the 3 dots in the triangle. So it looks a little bit like that. It's like a mess of dots under a letter. See that one? That's the hot F, segol. Now, if you look up at the vowels, you'll notice there's another hot F. And those are the 2 little dots. Okay? So you have those in an and you have those in an But when they're in the they have the dash. When they're in the they have the 3 dots. Triangle. I know. It's all right. Just remember the dots. Okay. The last 2 are unique because they're going to draw on another letter, which is the letter Yod. Okay? And the one is a tzere, okay, which is that one, right? But it has a Yod. Okay? These dots and the letter Yod are the vowel. Okay? So you might ask, well, how do you know? How do you know when you're reading something that it's not that one with the letter Yod and then the rest of the word that it's tzere Yod? Okay? Notice the sound is an A, just like in 8. Okay? And the last one is a segol Yod, which is 3 dots and the letter Yod. Okay? So all of that is the vowel. When we look at reading, okay, which we'll be doing in a matter of weeks, all right, you'll be amazed at how you'll look at a word and you'll be able to know if that Yod is a vowel or if that Yod is the letter Yod. Basically, it acts identical in either circumstance. Okay, so you'll know. Question. A. It's got Yod is ya. So if you have the and you add a ya, you have a. Like a what's the name of that? Diphthong vowel. A. Okay? But they're all related to the Okay? So you have a. Okay?
So the middle one that has
Yeah. It's right there. It's as in red, and then 8 as in A, and then A as in obey. To me, there's no difference in A and obey. But maybe that's my Florida upbringing. I don't know. I can't really hear difference in those. But when I'm reading, if there's an vowel and then there's a letter Yod that's next, okay, I know I'm going to go A because of that Yod that's up there. It's going to go A, and then the next bunch of letters. So we'll get there. Don't worry, we'll get there. I even thought about, and I brought a little book tonight. Let me get this out real quick. I thought I had it unless I put it in a different spot. Or maybe I guess I left it on my desk. Oh, no. No, that's not it. Okay, never mind. I don't have it. I left it on my desk. English a little bit more like it reads in Hebrew, which is not easy to do. But anyway, if you ever wanted to buy it, it's the Torah is one book, and then the Prophets is another book, and then the Writings are another book. And I just got those recently, and I'm using them for this, and I'm using notes out of the Complete Jewish Study Bible. Excuse me. And I'm using my own notes, background notes. So you got a whole bunch of ideas in there. Okay? And as I read, there are things that make me want to ask, well, yeah, but what about this? And that's usually where I dive in with the notes. Okay? All right, now, in the beginning of the reading, which the name of it is Yitro, which in English means Jethro, and when I think of that, of course, I think of the Beverly Hillbillies, which is nothing like what it was in the day of Moses. I don't think that Yitro was a hillbilly, although he lived in the land of Midian, and the land of Midian is a very hilly, mountainous region in Arabia. So, in a way, maybe he was a hillbilly. I don't know. But then there's nothing wrong with that. I got one whole end of my family would be that. Anyway, notice that it begins with now Yitro, the priest of Midian. Well, what does that mean? They didn't know Yehovah. They didn't have a Hebrew God. These were not God worshipers, the Midianites. Okay, so what does it mean that he was a priest of Midian? Well, most scholars believe that that means that Jethro was not a one God kind of guy, but he was a poly or henotheist that through his experience with Moses adopted the idea that Yehovah is the number one God. Okay? But in reality, many of the people that lived in that day, even the Hebrews maybe, believed that there were other gods. It's not that the other gods weren't real. They were real. Okay? They were real entities in their mind. And maybe in your mind as well. Okay? So it's not that there are no other gods. That's, believe it or not, that's a belief in the Christian religion that is not in ancient Hebrew religion. Ancient Hebrew religion believed that Yehovah is the God above all other gods, but not the God and there ain't no other gods. Okay?
Demons?
But
Do you think
demons?
you saw the other gods as demons, or?
I don't know that they had that intimate of a knowledge in what demons were in the Tanakh, in the ancient Hebrews. So they worshiped the goat demons. We know that from reading Torah.
And so I'm not arguing.
Yeah.
But Adam and Eve knew God personally, so you would think that throughout these centuries that there was relationship with a bunch of different people coming down. That Moses wasn't the first one that had relationship.
Right.
Jethro,
Right.
God had relationship with.
Except it would have had to have been the days of Noah, because everybody got wiped out but Noah. So Noah is like the second Adam. It would have been handed down via Noah. Maybe. Okay? But the Midianites were not known as being Yehovah worshipers. They didn't, they were enemies of Israel later on. So, to me, it looks like he was a priest of whatever the Midianite religion was, and I haven't really dug into that much. But, So I think it's interesting, okay? It says that he heard about all that God had done for Moses and for Israel, his people, and how Adonai, or Yehovah, had brought Israel out of Egypt. Okay? So, hey, whoever this God is, I need to listen to this. Okay? Now, later on, verses later, Yitro said this: "Blessed be Adonai, who has rescued you from the Egyptians and from Pharaoh, who has rescued the people from the harsh hand of the Egyptians. Now I know that Adonai is greater than all other gods." Okay? Because he rescued those who were treated so arrogantly. All right, and then I have Alter's quote about him believing in the reality of other gods. Okay? Now, you know what happens when he watches Moses, and Moses is basically wearing out everybody because he's the only guy. And everybody brings all their problems and all their needs and all their desires to have judgments made. They're bringing it all to Moses. And Yitro then looks at Moses and says, "This is not good. What you're doing is not good. You're going to wear out and everybody else is going to wear out. So here's what you do." So he had this idea of dividing the labor and getting some elders, and the elders would be over, certain numbers. And then we read in verse 24, Moses paid attention. By the way, that's the word Shema. Okay, he listened to his father-in-law's counsel and did everything he said. Wow. Were you on Zoom while you were driving, James? Okay. Now, I love what Prager wrote about this. He said, while Moses should take criticism and advice from Jethro because he respected and trusted him, there was an even more important reason that he could do this. Moses cared more about the welfare of the Israelite people than he did about his own ego. In other words, it would have been really easy for Moses to go, "Look, you're not even really one of us. All right? I'm doing this. I'm the leader. Thank you very much." But he didn't. He listened. Okay? Which is something else interesting that I'll bring up and I'll ask. Is Torah the only vehicle of the truth of God? Okay, I'll say it another way. Is the Bible the only means by which anybody ever learns truth about God? Okay, so where else would you learn? From other believers. Okay, what else? Revelation from God. Okay, and that's kind of hard to know. Is that the God of the Bible, or is that a voice? But yes, you're right. That is another way.
Paul says creation.
Aha, all right. The mountains, the clouds, everything else. Yep.
And didn't Job live on the other side of the desert during the time of Moses? And he was
If the other writings are right, yes. Yes. Okay, so how? How does it happen? Okay, so here's something that I've learned, and you don't have to agree with me about this or not. There are even other religions that have revelations about God. Yeah. Okay? The Baptists, they have some revelations about God. Are they another religion? What about the Methodists? What about the Assembly of God? They're way different from the Baptist and the Episcopal and the Anglican. And what about the Catholic? They have all that paganism mixed in. Do they have any elements of truth? Yes. Okay? There are elements of truth in a lot of religions. Okay? That doesn't make their religion right. all right? But at least I think that it's all right that we're humble enough to go, you know what? In that religion and your religion, that's something that God might have very well revealed, and they picked it up somewhere. Can you think of any like that? Any ideas like that? Think of any maybe? Okay. Love your neighbor, all right? Is love your neighbor something that would be in Buddhism? Probably. I don't know that much. I haven't delved into it or jumped into that. Mormonism. That's exactly what I was thinking about. Okay, something very interesting about Mormonism is in our way of looking at the Bible, Mormonism is off. Correct? Do you agree with me about that? Okay, there are beliefs that they have that are out of one guy who found this supposedly golden writings up in New York, all right, and then their religion is based on a mix, there's a word, a mix of the Bible and this guy's thing, okay, that was brought to him, he believes, by an angel named Moroni or something like that, okay? Now, as I learn things like that about that religion, I go, no, that doesn't line up at all with Torah. However, if I look at their behavior, much of their behavior is very moral and based on Torah-like behavior. Okay? So what I'm getting at is everything doesn't go in the right box. Okay? So maybe we ought to just not worry about the boxes as much as we think about what it is that God is revealing to us in Torah, and realize that you can learn even from people that are not believers, even from people that are Catholics. You can learn from them. Okay? All right, let's move on, because we could go down that road forever. Okay, now we have that they left Rephidim, and they arrived at the Sinai desert, and they set up camp in the desert there in front of the mountain. Israel set up their camp. What mountain was that? Oreb or Sinai. Okay, both of the names are used in the Bible. The mountain of God, the mountain of Yehovah. This, by the way, is the mountain that a couple of our members are going to be there in about a month or a little less. Art and Robert are going over to Arabia without me to that come out. They're going to go up that mountain that is believed by many to be the right mountain. I believe it's the right mountain in Arabia. Okay, but anyway, they're there. Okay, and Moses went up. Now, you're going to notice, if you didn't already, as you read Exodus 19 and 20, you ought to read and count how many times Moses goes up and down that mountain. Carrying rocks. If that is the right mountain, that is not an easy mountain to walk up. Okay, it's like going up flat top with the 10 Commandments at 80. Okay, so think about that. He went up to God, and Adonai called to him from the mountain. Here's what you are to say to the house of Jacob, tell the people of Israel, you have seen what I did to the Egyptians, and how I carried you on eagle's wings and brought you to myself. By the way, the wilderness or the desert isn't a desert like you and I think of desert. The word in Hebrew is bamidbar. Well, that's in the wilderness. Midbar. Midbar is wilderness, and in the wilderness there's grass. Okay? In other words, animals can eat in the wilderness. It's not all the way barren wilderness. All right? That's the word midbar. All right? Moses went up to God, meaning Moses went up the mountain. And the words that God uses about eagle's wings are words of a husband looking at his wife or his bride and basically being like the hero in the prince and the princess. I have brought you out from under your bondage of whatever bondage you're in on the wings of eagles. Okay? It's meant like that. All right? Now, what's amazing, though, is that when God brought Israel out, God did not only bring Israel out because he loved Israel. That's not the only reason. He brought Israel out in order that they might be his own treasure and a kingdom of priests. All right? Says that in verses 5 and 6 right there. Okay, these are the words you are to speak to Israel. All the earth is mine, and you will be a kingdom of Kohanim for me, a nation set apart. So they're not going to be like any other nation or any other group on the earth in that they are chosen in order to be priests over all the earth. Okay? What does a priest do? Well, number one, they minister to Jehovah. Okay? But there's something else that they do. They act like a bridge, right? Okay? And they bring the Word of God to those that don't know or haven't heard, and they bring the people to God. They're like, in a way, they're like intermediaries, all right? Now, Yeshua is our ultimate intermediary, right? Okay? But anyway, keep that in mind. Now, he said, if you will shema, if you'll hear and obey. So this great promise that Israel is going to be a treasure to God has conditions. It's not a, hey, I love you and I'm going to make you my treasure no matter what you do. That's not what's in the Bible at all, okay? There is a condition. Notice what it is. If you will, what? Shema. And to what? Keep my covenant. So that's Israel's responsibility to do that. Hear and obey. Keep his covenant, which, by the way, he hasn't made with them yet. He's about to make it, but he hasn't made it. This is like the introduction, all right? So what you're going to learn, Israel, and what you're going to hear, all right, you're going to be my chosen, if you will, and you're going to be my priests on the earth, and what you need to do, Israel, is obey my words. There you go. What could be easier than that, right? Figuring that out, okay? Dennis Prager wrote, Israel is chosen to spread knowledge of God and his moral law to all of humanity. The task of a priest is to minister to individuals and bring them closer to God. I almost agree with that. Okay? There's more than individuals. There's a whole community. And there's the idea of ministering unto the Lord. Okay? So Moses came, summoned the leaders of all the people, presented them with all these words, which Adonai had ordered him to say. All the people answered as one. Everything Adonai has said, we will do. Moses reported the words of the people to Adonai. This happens more than once, where Moses goes up, Moses goes down. Moses goes up, God says, I want you to go down and let them know this. So he goes down and he lets them know, they give him the answer, and he goes back up. Okay? So Moses goes up and down and up and down. What is this a picture of? The matchmaker. Like in Fiddler on the Roof. You know the lady, matchmaker. She goes to the wife. The bride-to-be. She goes to the husband-to-be. She goes to the bride-to-be. She gets the agreement arranged and all together. That's what's going on with Moses. Moses is being used as the matchmaker, the go-between. All right? And then you have that word, that Hebrew word, ketubah, which is the marriage document, which is what the rabbis believe Torah is. It's the marriage document, okay? The commandments, all right? God used Moses, this is a complete Jewish Bible, God used Moses as the deliverer and mediator of this covenant between Israel and God. This is important to think about this. It is not a covenant of salvation, but a covenant of blessing and cursing based on trusting and faithfulness on Israel's part. This is where we get it all mixed up in Christianity. Okay? Because if I look at anybody and I go, I'm going to do my best to walk in Torah, they'll be like, well, you don't have to do that. I'll say, well, I know I don't have to do that. I don't have to do anything. I can do anything I want. Right now, it's relatively free in America, so I can do anything I want. But that's not what they're getting at. They go, well, how much is enough? I've had this question. How much is enough? How much is enough what? How many of the commands are enough for you to obey that you'll go to heaven when you die? It's not what it's about. Obeying Torah is not about going to heaven when you die. Okay? Going to heaven when you die is based on a relationship that you and I have with Yehovah through Yeshua, the Lamb of God, who died in order to take away the sins of the world. Okay? That's his area. It's not my area. My area is walk in obedience, because if I'm in a relationship of love with him, it says in the Bible, if I love him, I will keep his commands. So there you go. That's his love language. So I'm going to use that love language. And in addition to that, if I walk in his ways, then he uses me as a light. If I do not walk in his ways, I am not a light. I may think that I'm a light. I may be a voice, a loud voice about grace, 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 right? But I'm not really a light unless I'm walking in his ways. Now, it's true that you can walk in his ways and not know that you're walking in his ways. Okay? All right, great. As long as you're walking in his ways, awesome. Living God's way. And Prager, you will notice, is very much his main bottom line is morality. Okay, and I think that that's not all there is. I think that morality is like the bottom line foundation, but I don't think that's all there is. Torah is not only moral law. Okay, it's law about relationship with Yehovah. And it's law about how to worship Yehovah. All right? But the moral law, absolutely. The USA was based and founded on the moral laws of Torah. And you know what that'll do? That brings blessing. The more obedience there is, the more blessing there is. The less obedience there is, the less blessing there is.
I would argue
James.
all not only successful but unsuccessful communities initially were established under Christian principles, if I use that term loosely, of the Torah, and the fact that they hope that you don't want people running around killing each other, right? You want people to be able to work together, right? You want to be able to
Hello?
have a certain day of
Yes.
whatever God theirs may be.
Yes.
There's a level of all Torah and all communities and social organizations that are trying to save that.
Yeah.
Not just U.S.
Well, yes, but I wouldn't use the word all. I'd use the word in those that work well. But there's a lot of them that do not, like China doesn't. Theirs is based on their government's idea because Mao stripped away all of the religious ideas other than the ones that, could be used by from the government. So, but I get it. Yeah, and you're right. You're right. It is if you will walk in God's ways. The more that you walk in the ways of God, the better off everybody around you is going to be. Excuse me. Even if you're not a believer. Okay? If you're living in the moral laws of God, but you're not religious at all and you're not a believer at all, you will be better off than a believer who is not walking. A believer that is not walking in the ways of God. Okay? And everybody around you will be better off. Why? Because you're not going to steal. You're not going to murder. You're not going to be looking at the other guy's wife. You're not going to, go on down the line. Why? Because you have an idea, well, this is right and this is wrong. Okay? You can build something on that. You can't build anything on everything goes. Right? That doesn't work. So, all right, now notice the next line. We're in verse 11 already. And prepare for the third day. For on the third day, Adonai will come down on Mount Sinai before the eyes of all the people. So something amazing is going to happen on that day. If you'll notice in the notes, you have some other things that happened on that day, on the third day. The earth brought forth vegetation. Okay? Abraham looked up and noticed or saw Mount Moriah where he went to sacrifice Isaac. Remember? Okay? On the third day, Joseph released his brothers out of the prison in Egypt. Okay? On that day, Yehovah spoke the words from the mountain that we're about to read. On that day, the Israelites crossed Jordan to enter and possess the land. On that day, King Hezekiah was healed of his fatal disease. On that day, Jonah was expelled from the belly of the whatever it was that he was in, fish, whale, submarine. On that day, Esther entered the palace of the king in order to stop the death threat from Haman, which, by the way, we're going to be celebrating in a couple weeks, right? Okay? And then on the third day, Yeshua was raised from the dead. That's not all of the examples. But that's a lot of the highlights of there's something going on that day. Okay? Moses and the people meet with Yehovah on the mountain, and the mountain where they now are is the mountain where Moses encountered Yehovah in the burning bush. Remember when he asked God, he's like, how am I going to know that this is really you, that you are the God of, gods, because you're asking me to go down into Egypt. How do I know I'm really hearing you? He goes, here's how you're going to know. Okay, do you remember? Do you remember what he says to him? You're going to go get Israel, and you're going to bring them out and meet me here on this mountain, and then you'll know. Wow. So, isn't that amazing? He wasn't, at least with Moses, he wasn't like, well, let me rend the heavens. And yet, I mean, yeah, there was a bush that burned. Okay? But that bush that was burning was not enough to convince Moses to go do what God wanted him to do. Remember? There was argument, debate that went on. Okay? Which may be what happens in your life. It happens in my life. God sometimes wants me to do things that I don't really want to do. Dare I admit that? I know that never happens with you guys. You're always like, yep, all right. No. Okay. Now, here's some interesting things about what happened in Exodus 3 at the burning bush and what's going to happen right here, because they're going back to that mountain, same mountain. Okay, in the first encounter, Moses led his father-in-law's sheep through the wilderness to the mountain of God. Now, Moses leads his heavenly father's sheep through the wilderness to the mountain of God. Shepherd. Okay, in the beginning, in the first encounter, Moses saw a bush on fire, but now Moses is going to see the whole mountain on fire. Okay, at the bush, Moses was told, stay back, for you're on holy ground. Okay, and take off your shoes, right? Now the people are told, stay back, for the ground is holy ground. At the bush, God said, I am the God of your fathers. Now, God says in his commands is, I am Yehovah, your Elohim. So I am not only the Elohim of your fathers, but I'm going to let you know, Israel, I am your Elohim, your God as well. At the bush, God said, I have seen the affliction of my people who are in Egypt. And now, he says, see what I did to the Egyptians? Okay, so it's all going to be coming around. At the bush, Moses said, who am I? And God said, I will be with you. And now, Yehovah says, I was with you. I brought you on eagle's wings, okay, to myself. At the bush, Moses asked God what his name was. He said, I am who I am, or Yehovah, meaning he is. Now God will tell all of them about his name and remind them that they're not to use his name idly. We'll learn about that in a minute with the commandments, all right? Trying to get to the commandments, because that's going to take us like an hour. Okay, some other very interesting things are going on. On that morning, the morning of when? The third day, there was thunder, lightning, and a cloud on the mountain. Okay, that word thunder is not the Hebrew word thunder. It's the word voice. Okay, it's kol, which is a voice. So they're witnessing lightning and they're hearing, it's actually not just voice, but voices. But that doesn't translate well into a way that people can grasp. Okay, so on the morning of the third day, there were voices, maybe voices that were like thunder, and there was lightning and a thick cloud. There was a movie, and I don't remember what it was. So many of the Bible movies are there's like that much truth that you can learn in them, but the most of the rest of it is Hollywood nonsense. But there was a movie where the voice of God was more than one voice. I think it's in The Prince of Egypt. Yes, I know, Disney movie from years ago, where Moses meets God at the burning bush, and the voice is like 1,000 voices all at once. What? Really? Okay. I don't remember it in that movie, but there you go. So that's the idea. Okay, so there's these voices, all right? And then there's the ram's horn And all of this is an announcement. It's to be used as an announcement that the King of the earth is about to deliver his words. All right? Jewish tradition says that this encounter happened on Shavuot. I think that tradition is right. And there's a lot of reasons why I think that tradition is right, all right? But Shavuot is known in Judaism as like the apex of God's revelation of who he is and what he wants from us, because on that day he revealed his 10 words, 10 commandments, his Torah. Now, I'm going to bring this up again Friday night. Because Friday night, I'm taking a couple of weeks away from Matthew. Something else is moving in me that I think I need to address. And Friday night's going to be the idea of revival. Revival, okay. Well, that will be something I'll go over a little bit, yeah. Church, it's a school. Okay, but anyway, regardless of that, you have this Shavuot would, in our minds, be like the greatest revival that ever happened in the book of Acts. Okay, because that happened on Shavuot. Okay, so now you have Moses, God revealing the commandments or the words to Israel on Shavuot. Then you have in the book of Acts a great revival that's happening on that day. There ought to be a great big connection going on in our minds about what happened then and what happened in the book of Acts. But if you lop off the Old Testament, and if you lop off all of the appointed times, you'll never get that. You'll be like the day, the book of Acts is like a day unto its own, and when they go the day of Pentecost, that doesn't mean anything, other than it's great, it's a Christian holiday, but what does that mean, right? So here's this connection that ought to be made, and then the connection is in the prophets, because you have both Jeremiah and Ezekiel going, hey, guys, there's going to be a day, and on that day, I'm going to make a renewed covenant with Israel, okay? And I am going to write my Torah on their hearts. Okay? Ezekiel says, I'm going to give them a new spirit that will cause them to walk in the ways of my Torah. That's what happened in the book of Acts. So if you miss the connection in the book of Acts and Torah, you miss the revival. Because the revival is about more than what happened with the fire and the voices and all of that. That's not the revival. The revival is what? Walking in the ways of God. Right? Okay? So that's what's going on the mountain. All right? So then you read, Gar.
This thing that keeps coming up on the third day, is that the 9th of Av?
I do not know if the 9th of Av is a third day. I would guess that it is not. Okay? The original 9th of Av, when they were in the desert, in the wilderness, and they were going to go into the land, but they didn't do it. Right? That's the beginning of the 9th of Av. Tradition right there, when they didn't go into the wilderness. So I don't know if that's related or not, but it's a good question. I don't know. Okay, now, then 20 verse 1. Here we go. Then Elohim said all these words. Okay? The word words is devarim. In Hebrew, devarim. The verb is dabar, which means speak. The noun is davar, which is a word. Devarim is plural, and it means words. That word is used, it's one of the most used words in the Bible. Okay? Devar and Devarim. And it is technically, although it matters, I guess, if you want to go deep like we do, but they're really not the commandments. They are the words. Okay? The 10 words. Why does that matter? Well, it matters for a couple different reasons. One is we, in our day, think of a commandment as something negative. Okay? It's not. It's not meant to be negative at all. Okay? And the words that God is giving them are words of their new identity, which is based on the fact that they are no longer slaves in Egypt. And now that you're not slaves in Egypt, I'm going to give you the list of what it looks like to be in my realm rather than in Pharaoh's realm. Because in Pharaoh's realm, there were certain ways of looking at life and behaving. In my realm, it's not going to be like that. Okay? And this is what it's going to be like with the words. Okay? So, I have the words in numbers and Hebrew letters because they use Aleph, Beit, Gimel as numbers. Okay? And we're going to look at them. And then we're going to look at some things about them. And then we'll be done. Okay, word number 1. I am Adonai your God who brought you out of the Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. Now, we stop right there and let you know in Christianity, the numbers are not the numbers that they are in the Bible or in Hebrew. Okay? In Christianity, the number 1 commandment is you will have no other gods. In the list in Hebrew, that's the 2nd commandment. Okay? Number 1 is I am. It's not a commandment. See? It's a word. I am Yehovah your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery. That's number 1. That's the number 1 thing that we need to know. The number 1 thing that we need to know is not you shall not worship any other gods. Number 1 thing you need to know is you belong to me. Okay? And I rescued you. Well, hasn't he done that for us? Right? Okay? Yehovah wants his people to know that he has acted as their bridegroom and rescued his beloved from the abode of slavery. And now he's going to give them his expectations of their being the bride. Okay? So, second one, you are to have no other gods, literally, in my presence. Okay? Or literally, you are to have no other gods in my face. Okay? You are not to make a carved image or any kind of representation of anything in heaven above, on the earth beneath, or in the water below the shoreline. You are not to bow down to them or serve them, for I, Adonai your God, am a jealous God, punishing, wrong word. Okay, we went over that word back a while ago. That word is visiting or watching over the children for the sins of the parents to the third and fourth generation of those who hate me, but displaying grace to the 1,000th generation of those who love me and obey my mitzvot. Okay? Very interesting that Alter points out that throughout the words, the commands are in second person singular, where elsewhere in Hebrew law, they're either plurals like y'all or third person, you guys. All right? So what that means is that and this is the Jewish belief, that the commandments were addressed to each individual. Okay? This is not just about you guys as a nation. This is about you as an individual. I am speaking to you right now, Gar. I am speaking to you because you are my bride. Isn't that neat? Okay. And just as a husband and a wife are to be for each other exclusively, so Yehovah and each member of Israel are to be for each other. He will not share his affections with another god or idol or commitment, okay? And we already looked at the word, the Hebrew word that means watch over, okay? Pakad is the word. Okay, number 3. Himmel. You are not to use lightly the name of Adonai your God, because Adonai will not leave unpunished someone who uses his name lightly. Use lightly is the complete Jewish Bible translation of in vain, which is the Hebrew word shav, which means empty or false. Okay, so you're not to use his name emptily or falsely. What does that mean? Well, you got to realize that the word that's used, you are not to use my name, is the Hebrew word nasa, which you guys already know what it means. Lift up or lift off or carry. So the idea you are not to carry my name in a way that's false or empty, that doesn't mean the same thing as don't use the name of the Lord your God in vain, does it? Okay, now we have a whole new idea of what this means. It's not about using a bad word. That's not a good idea. I wouldn't think that that would be wise to do that and use God's name and then a bad word. That's just wrong, all right? But that's not what this is about. This is about something much more weighty. What this is about is if anyone claims that they're acting in the name of God, but they're lying or they're not, that's that commandment. As well, anyone who is using his name as in, I am a God follower, God believer, Jew, Christian, whatever, using his name in that way and not acting in his image, you are disobeying that commandment. Okay? It's related to that. It's very much related to that. Because on one, you're bearing false witness about your brother. In the other one, you're bearing false witness about God, which we're going to look at in a little bit. And some of you already know this, how the commandments are not only connected upward to God, but they're connected this way to one another as well. And that's the one that's connected with it. You got it, James. You're ahead of me. Okay, number 4, Dalet. Remember one day a week, whatever day you want, and set it apart for God. There you go. Oh, wait, did I say that wrong? It isn't any day you want? Oh, you're right. Remember the day. Shabbat, and set it apart for God. You have 6 days to labor and do your work, but the 7th day is a Shabbat for Adonai your God. On it you're not to do any kind of work, not you, your son, your daughter, etc. Okay, on down the line. Something about that day, that there's a book by Abraham Heschel known as The Sabbath. That's the name of his book. He was a Jewish rabbi that died several years ago, but is one of the most famous Jewish rabbis of the 20th century. He's a great author. So he wrote that book, and in that book, he brings it up. I'm using my own language because I don't remember exactly how he said it, but basically the idea is that everything in our life, if you think about it, because we're Greek mind, Greek and Roman minds. We have Greek and Roman minds. The Western mind. Everything in our life revolves around space. Things, nouns, okay? My automobile, my job, my wife, my this, my that, my other, my house, my clock, yada, 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 okay? Shabbat is the only thing that doesn't involve space at all. It involves time. So the idea is that Yehovah is Lord not only of space, but of time as well. And that just as we have something in space that is his house, if you will, which was the tabernacle, he's giving them something else that they'll have in time, which is Shabbat. Shabbat is just as important as the tabernacle. Okay? It's the way that we recognize God in our lives. And it's as if there is I can't think of the word to use. There's like a zone of holiness that you can only get in on that day. And if you miss it, it's gone. Can't ever do it again. Okay? Yes, Gar.
That's a day for us to rejuvenate.
Yes.
To rejuvenate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, and it's, in a way, it's like date night. Okay? God is giving you a date night and day. Okay? He says on that day, it's going to be you and me and your family, and we're going to be together, and we're going to love on one another on that day. And it won't be like on other days. Okay? Well, I know about that. If I go out on a date with my wife, which would be a good idea, I need to write that down. If I were to go out on a date with my wife, that would be a night that would not be like other nights. Okay? It would be different. Everything about it would. So that's the idea. Okay? Okay, number 5, honor your father and mother so that you may live long in the land which Adonai your God is giving you. Okay? Very interesting that the word he uses is not the word love. Why not? He doesn't command you to love your mother and father. He commands you to honor them. What? That goes against everything we learn in our world, okay? It's all about love. Well, what is love? Love is an action. To honor, in a way, is love. But if your idea of love is that love is an emotion, then you don't need to honor your mom and dad. You just need to love them. Do you get it? Yeah, Gar.
Isn't love loyalty?
Loyalty is an element of love.
It's not an emotion, but loyalty.
Absolutely. It's an element. Yes. Sabah.
Understand, honor to understand.
Okay, I think that's an element of it. I think another element of it is forgiveness. Okay? Because when you're young, honoring means what? When you're 5, it means obeying, okay? When you're older, it means forgiveness. Forgiving your mom and dad when you learned what they did wrong.
It says I didn't choose my parents.
No, you didn't. That's right, you didn't choose them. Dana.
I think it would be look up to.
Look up to. Ooh, that's a good word. Did you have your hand up, Mark? No? Okay, so there you go. That's the idea. Honor them. Honor them in any way that you're able to honor them. Sometimes honoring them means forgiving them. Okay? Sometimes honoring means looking at their qualities that you want to emulate and grabbing onto those and don't worry about the other ones, because there's nothing you could do about them anyway. Right? So, anyway, I think that is there. Honor is the Hebrew word kabod, which means make weighty. It's the same word from where we get the word glory. Okay? All right. Next, number 6, do not murder. By the way, murder is not the word that means kill. 2 different words in Hebrew. Okay? So that's one of the reasons that people have, one of the reasons, there's other reasons that are different and, applicable, but one of the reasons that certain groups of believers don't go to war is because they don't want to violate that commandment. But war and killing enemies who have evil in their heart against you is not murder. This is not that commandment. Couldn't be. Right? Because how often did God look at Israel and go, I want you to go wipe them out? Okay? Was that murder? No. That wasn't murder. Okay? Next, number 8, do not steal. Meaning, don't take anything that belongs to another. That includes honor. Okay? Don't take honor away from somebody else that's theirs. That includes ideas and things that are written. Okay? Plagiarism is stealing. So if I use, you'll notice I do my best, I think I do it all right, is whenever I use anybody else's words or ideas, I note it. Because I want you to know they're not mine. Because I don't want to rip off somebody else's ideas. Yes?
I just had to ask, going back to honor your parents, thinking about blended families. Wait, you talked about
blended
someone's honor. I just wanted an adopted child or a stepchild to realize that you're not saying, and maybe in those times in the Bible, children were raised by communities. So your parents, what I'm getting at, are not just birth, mother, and father. You have honor. Not just that, but your elders.
You're right.
And when you talk about not steal honor from, or take from the wrong honor, and you're not saying to honor your stepfather is appropriate, to honor your elders and your grandparents,
yes,
the people in the community. I said things that we struggle with that.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
A greater capacity for honor outside your parents.
Well, there's the idea of honoring the elderly. Honor those that are gray-haired. That's the idea. The idea, the law, the word is honor your father and your mother. Well, then you could ask, just like the guy that asked Yeshua, who's my neighbor? You could ask, well, who's my father and my mother? That depends on your upbringing. Depends on your circumstance. Maybe your father and your mother are not your biological father and your mother. That doesn't matter. They're your father and your mother. If they are functioning that way in your life, then that's who they are. You may have more than one father in your life. I know people that have others that are like, that person is like one of my fathers. They act as a father in my life. Great, then honor them. That's the principle of it. So it's a principle. And something else to realize is that in Israel, okay, a lot less is based on bloodline than you think it is. Less on bloodline. Okay, your bloodline is irrelevant. It doesn't matter to God. Yeah?
God, but not to Israel, you said to Israel.
Well, to Israel, in the Tanakh, where does it matter? Where does it not matter? I am the God of your father, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right, let's look at Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. What about Joseph? What about those that were members of Ephraim? Their mother was an Egyptian. Okay, so that means everybody that's offspring of Ephraim is no longer offspring of the line of Abraham only, but now we have Egyptian blended into the bloodline. Okay, then we have other nationalities and other races blended into the bloodline. So when you get all the way down to today, nobody knows, but even down to the days of Yeshua, the bloodlines were not pure like you and I think of when we think of, oh, are you Israelite bloodline? It doesn't matter if you're Israelite bloodline. Okay? What matters is you either are one that worships and follows the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. If you are adopted in to his family, and you're as much a son as a bloodline is. Right? Okay? What? Yeah. Oh, I know. Yeah, you're right.
I thought there's been a huge animosity to anybody looking at someone that wasn't.
Yeah.
The Pharisees set that up because they wouldn't let him eat outside.
That's right. It wasn't God's idea that you never hang out with people that are not believers. That is not God's idea. Okay? How else is anybody going to know if you don't get near them?
Yeah.
Right?
Why is it that vital statistics, when they check your blood, if you have anything that's related to it, they let you know?
Anything related to what?
Well, if you're the same blood, the same blood type.
It just means that that's in your line. You don't mean like O and A and all that. You mean like if you have any Jewish in your bloodline? Is that what you mean?
I was asking you that before you get married, you have to go to Bible statistics
Yes.
and give them a blood sample.
Yeah, the only reason they want that is that's rather new, meaning the last 100 years, maybe, is that there are blood types that if you mingle them, as in having a baby, if you don't have a certain something, okay, it can be dangerous. Okay, you'll have a greater risk of losing the baby or whatever, or that the baby won't. So like my wife and I are an example. Our bloods didn't match. She had to take something, Rh negative. She had to take that when she was pregnant, so that our baby would work out right. I don't know. You guys didn't have that done? I don't know. Maybe they don't do it anymore. I don't know. Does anybody know?
Well, in the time of King George, each generation, King George the first, second, third, as they married within their own kind, their chin started to grow out. This was a birth defect.
Huh. Maybe that's what's going on with me. Maybe he's in my background. I don't know. I was wondering about the what was that?
It also has to do with being too closely related.
Yes, that's another element of it. Yep. And I was wondering where all this genetic blood, whatever, dysfunction came that's making everybody tall. I'm like, that's not normal. Is it? What's up with that?
Well, that came in Genesis chapter 6.
Genesis 6, the Nephilim, the giants are evil.
Sons of God
Yeah.
married with the women of the earth.
Sorry, that was a joke online group. That wasn't real. Okay, let's move on.
You skipped 7.
Do not commit adultery. I guess I did. Okay, and, think about it, that marriage is not only a symbol of our relationship with Yehovah, but it really is a building block of our whole society. And when that gets removed, things go amiss. And they've been going amiss for many years now. Okay? And number 9, do not give false evidence against your neighbor or bear false witness against your neighbor. And number 10, do not covet your neighbor's what? house, wife, slave, ox, donkey, or anything else, even a Rolex that belongs to your neighbor. Okay? So there they are. That word, by the way, covet, is the word hamad, which means desire. Okay? So it's not only I look at something and I like it, it's I look at something and I want it. And maybe even lean into moving in the direction of getting it, whatever it is. Okay? Now, you'll notice these words are all about relationship because our God is a God of relationship. But I want to look at the structure of these words. Okay? We looked at this last year, and a lot of you, it'll be a reminder. Okay? Remember when the guy asked Yeshua, what's the most important mitzvah or commandment in Torah? And he said, love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and all your strength. Well, what's interesting is that literal command is not in the 10 words. Where is it? The Shema. Deuteronomy 6 is where that is. The second one is love your neighbor. Okay? That's in Leviticus. And that one isn't even like you would think in Torah, that love your neighbor as yourself would be like loud and maximized. Well, it is because it's in all of the other commandments. It's just not love your neighbor as yourself. It's do not murder, do not steal. All of those are about loving your neighbor, right? Okay, so then Yeshua, he said this, all of the Torah and the prophets, literally he said, hang on these two. Okay, so if you look at the 10 commandments or words, traditionally in Judaism they're broken up evenly on 2 tablets, which is what you read about in Torah, right? Okay, on those you have 5 on one and 5 on the other. So if you hang them, and on the first 5 you have love the Lord your God, and on the second ones you have love your neighbor, that's how it works. Okay? Some people have said that the 10 words are like an index to the rest of the laws of Torah. So each of the laws that you're reading about are the way, or you're going to read about, are the ways that God is giving Israel to do the 10 words in their day where they live. Okay, in their world. So we need to figure out what those laws mean for us in our world, because we don't live in their world. We live in a completely different world. We actually, we live in Babylon. I don't know if you're aware of that. We live in Babylon. Okay? We don't live in Israel. We don't live in a rich nation. We live in Babylon. It's all around us. Okay? That's another lesson for another day. Okay, so look at the love God. You have here are the words. I am Yahweh your God. You have no other gods. Don't take my name in vain. Remember the Shabbat and honor your father and mother. Okay, and then the last, love others. No murder, no adultery, stealing, false witness, and coveting. So go ahead and ask me the obvious. Okay. Ask me the obvious about my lists. Okay? Why is honor your father and mother under love God and not under love your neighbor? Yes, because they are authority in your life. In a way, they represent the upward relationship that you have in your life. All the other relationships are horizontal. Okay? Your relationship with God is upward, and your father and mother are to be upward, which is why if you don't honor your father and your mother, really you are rebelling against God. You're rebelling against the vertical relationship. of God. As much as you might not think that's right, that's what you're doing. Okay? Now, what's neat about this, and James already brought it up, even though I don't know if you knew you did or not, but these all relate, bless you, relate not only the ones on the one tablet are upward, the ones on the other tablet are horizontal with your neighbor, but the words, that's my Siri, the words connect one to another in the lines, all right? So you see the little diagram there with the arrows. So let's look at those and see how they connect with one another. So number 1 goes along with number 6. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the abode of slavery, is connected with do not murder. Okay? How would they be connected? Because your fellow human beings are made in the image of God. So murder is a deleting of the image of God. Okay? Murder is murdering God. You could think of it like that. I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of Egypt. Okay? When you murder, when you bring God to nothing, or you think something like my life would be better without God, ignoring God is a way of murdering him in your life. Because you're deleting him. Right? Murder is when you delete another human being because they get in your way, or because you don't like what they did, or whatever, or just because you're evil. That's what murder is. Okay? So, in each of these connections, there's a principle. And this is the principle. Don't do away with God or others. Recognize God and others. Don't do away with them. This town is not big enough for both of us. One of us is going to have to go. So I'm leaving. You've heard that, right? Okay, next is you are to have no other gods and do not commit adultery. Can you see how those are related? Just by reading them together? And that when Israel had other gods, what is it that God accused them of? Adultery, right? So there it is. In adultery, what you're doing is you're mixing something or someone else into a relationship where it doesn't belong. You're bringing a mixture into the relationship. And we know God doesn't like that. Later on, we're going to learn about don't even mix the clothes or the fibers of the clothes that you're wearing. Don't mix the seeds in your fields. And the reason is he wants you to learn, don't mix worship of me with other gods. Okay? So that matters. So here's the principle is honor sacred relationships. Okay, number 3 and 8. You are not to use lightly the name of Adonai your God, and do not steal. Okay? In Hebrew, when you steal, literally the idea is you kidnap. Okay? And it's a violation. So when you don't carry the name of God in the way he intended, you're violating him. Just like you violate your neighbor when you steal, you violate Yahovah when you use his name in vain. Okay? So what's the principle? Don't violate God or one another. Okay? Okay, next, going together. Remember today Shabbat, and don't give false evidence against your neighbor. Well, this is easy to know how these go together, because Shabbat is the one witness and evidence that God is real. He's the one that brought that up, not me. I didn't make that up. Okay? it says that honoring Sabbath is a sign, okay? And just as Yahweh created the heavens and the earth in 6 days and rested on the seventh, that day is a day to recognize who He is. So we are to tell the truth about God and our neighbor. And one way to do that is Sabbath, because it recognizes who He really is. He's the God of the Bible. There are people right now all over the world, really, but in India, I know when you guys a couple weeks ago heard about what's going on in India, one of the ways that they're getting in connection with Joseph, our man in India, is he's going around to these communities and they're finding, by reading their Bibles, they're beginning to do Shabbat. And they're like, we need help because we've never learned any of this. And he is coming along and helping them learn all those things. And I tell people, you can get where we are just by reading your Bible. It's that easy. It's not rocket science, but anyway. Okay, honor your father and mother. Do not offend, which is the last one. Sorry. Okay, what does honoring my father and mother have to do with coveting what my neighbor wants? Well, why would you want what your neighbor wants unless you don't like who you are and where you are in life? You want to be like your neighbor, which is a way of not honoring your father and your mother who brought you into the world, right? So there's the connection, okay? So don't do away with who you are, okay? Oh yeah, we did it. I did it. So there you go. Questions about any of that? Okay? You get the idea. You could do a whole year on the words. 10 words. When people are like, wow, you're really going deep into this, I'm like, not really. Deeper maybe than we have, but the depths are, it's like you go off this little cliff and you realize, whoa, there's a lot more there. And then you get down a notch into it and you're like, whoa, there's a lot more below me than and it just keeps going and going and going and going and going. And we're never going to get to the end of it in our life, to learning about it, learning about God and the Word and all that. It's glorious. So, Patty, yes. People who did not recognize that the first word was, I am the Lord your God that brought you out of Egypt.
How did they come up with 10 words?
Because they made them commandments. Oh, well, they made the second one, I believe, is made into 2. Okay? It's you shall have no other gods and you shall not make any idols. Okay? But in the Hebrew way, you shall have no other gods nor idols, because they're the same deal. Yeah.
And my other thought was, to think of idols and idolatry for that number 2, and the one on the opposite side is adultery, which is
Oh, that works.
an
Idolatry and adultery.
person that should be getting the highest estate.
Yes, that works. That's an easy way to remember it as well. Good. Okay, yeah, James?
I just want to hit on something you said earlier, just because I kind of heard you mention it before, and it leaves a hanging thought in my head that I just wanted to clear up.
Hanging.
To verbalize myself that you keep mentioning about other gods, and it needs to be emphasized that if He created everything, He obviously did not create other gods.
Or
Understanding of them being false angels or fallen angels or anything else, despite what they actually are, we know they're not God, misleading us on purpose to see if we'll choose him. And we know they weren't beings that were here before him or came as he came. So this is in this context of what we're
Right.
talking about. So,
Right.
it's just, there's not something he created to divert us away from him.
No,
And there's
no.
beings competing with his attention from the standpoint of the equality of it.
Right.
Trying,
Yes.
but I just think it's great.
So there are demons. Yeah, there are demons. Okay, and there's levels of demons. You know, it's like just like demons and angels.
They're all rooted in the fallen.
They are.
Of the enemy's persuasion of us to be disobedient.
Yes. Yes.
I just want to clarify.
Yes.
We're saying that.
Well, I wasn't using those words, but yes, I agree with that. You're right. Yeah.
This is not that.
Yeah. He created them all, whatever there is. And if some of them look at their, what is a God? You have to ask, what is a God? Well, a God is a mighty one. L. So what is a mighty one? Well, a mighty one is one that is mightier than you are.
Or it takes
Okay.
your attention from the Father on anything else in your life.
Yes.
Make money a God. Don't make anything else a God.
Yes.
You can go down that path.
That's right. Yes, you're right. I agree with that.
Okay.
Yep.
Not hanging it.
Yep. Okay. Good. Yes.
I just want to share a verse.
Okay, go ahead. Wait, what Bible version are you using? Okay. The Message. Okay.
Peter 2, 9 and 10. And then personalized.
Wait, guys online, hold on. You get the mic. I forgot that I had it.
Oh, yeah.
Don't know why I'm worn out today.
Okay, 1 Peter 2, verses 9 and 10.
Yes.
But we are the ones chosen by God, chosen for the high calling of priestly work, chosen to be a holy people, God's instruments to do his work and speak out for him, to tell others of the night and day difference he made for us, from nothing to something, from rejected to accepted.
Very nice. I love it.
Love that.
That's right.
Greece is what you're getting at?
Yep, that's
Yeah.
it. That's where that is. It's good. All right, well, have a great rest of the week. And
Read your Bible. Oh, yeah.
go home and read your Bibles. Yep, and get a good night's sleep wherever you are. And pray that I get that as well. So,
Judge me on Zoom.
goodbye, all Zoomers, Zoom people. Love you all. See you later.
I don't know how to turn it off.
Click it down.